Hey friends, it's RSKT, and welcome back to another episode of the AE Modular Video Library, the series that takes a look at the wide range of modules available for the AE Modular system. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the master module, giving a general overview before diving into some demo patches. Before we begin, AE Modular is a small but ever-growing system, so if you find this video useful, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, or consider supporting me on Patreon. The videos for the series can be found in a playlist on my channel, can be viewed in any order. Green thumbnails are used for official Tangible Waves modules, and pink thumbnails are used to cover third-party modules. With that said, let's take a look at the master module. So I think it goes without saying that the master module is pretty much the bread and butter of my entire rack. You can have an AE Modular rack without one, you just need an alternative power supply. There's a few different ones to choose from on the Tangible Waves website, or you can just power the whole thing sort of with like some DIY toolkit. But yeah, this one came with my starter rack too, and it is essential for powering the system and connecting it to the outside world. Normally, you just plug your power cable directly to the in and it will turn on, or you can buy a switch like I've got here, and then this switches off the entire thing and toggles it back on when you need it. So let's go over some of the inputs and outputs on this module. In terms of inputs, we have MIDI in. We have some little LEDs for gate and clock from the MIDI. We've got two audio inputs or outputs, so you can put audio into this system if you want, or of course, bring it out. And we've also got two control inputs and outputs for sending back and forth CV values. So the way I've usually got this set up is by having a 3.5mm jack plugged into the audio in out, and then that runs to an input in my Deluge, and then I have all of the audio from that run into my Zoya, and then that goes into my audio interface where I record my videos. The main reason I've got it going into a Deluge is because the Deluge is a really fun sequencer slash brain. I can send CV and MIDI in and out of it. I can record things from my system into it and jam away. It's just a really good and practical groove box for using in conjunction with this system. Of course, you can use this completely by itself without a groove box. I just like sort of mixing and mashing the two worlds together. Now, up the top here, we've got audio 1 and 2 in and out, and of course they correspond with these. So if I had audio coming into this system, I would take a patch cable and go from one of them, whichever one I've got the audio coming into, and then patch that through to whatever I want. Maybe it's a VCA, maybe it's an effects module, whatever you want to do. But if I want audio to come out of this system, usually I've got things routed into my mixer down here, and then I'll take the output of my mixer and plug it into audio 1 out. And that is running now through this cable. So if I grab something like, let's just take the 555 oscillator here, and I plug it into my mixer. There we go. And that's how you get audio going. Underneath that, we have control 1 and 2 in or out, and that corresponds with these two jacks down here. So I have a cable here, a 3.5mm cable for patching. I'll just plug it into CV2 on my Deluge here. Let's hook it up to control 1. Now I've already got a CV track set up on my Deluge, and you can see hopefully on camera that it's on the number 2. This means that I can take a patch cable from that, and now let's change it to the pitch of my oscillator. So we'll turn this up, and whoops, I've accidentally undone a cable there. Great. And there we go. I can now play this on my Deluge. So this is really, really great because it means that I can sequence different things on my Deluge. I'm just going to key in a bunch of random notes and set it to a scale. And if I press play, so, I mean, this is particularly useful because it means that I can set up sequences on my Deluge, and then if I like what I hear, I can actually use the looper on my Deluge and loop that sequence before changing it up and moving on to some other new idea. And let's not forget that the deluge also outputs gate. So if I plug in a cable here, I'll just make it to gate 1. I can now take the number 2 of that, and we could hook it up to an envelope, for example. Now, I just need to make sure that this is switched back to gate channel 1 because I'm using the gate channel 1 output on my deluge. And if I play this, we can see that every time I hit a button on my deluge, it's lighting up the gate. So this is really, really fantastic because it means that we can generate gates and rhythms using the deluge and CV as well. I'm just going to unplug these for now so that they're out of the way, but it's worth mentioning that this isn't the only way to get CV values in and out of your system. There are other modules like the 4 in out that allow you to do more of these, which is something I've got my eye on for the future. So I'm just going to unplug those control sections for now. Now, next up underneath this, we have bus CV, bus gate, and bus control. So this all correlates to MIDI, and to get MIDI into our system, we need to use a special adapter like this one. So I've got a basic MIDI cable, and that plugs into this adapter, and that just goes into the MIDI in. So I'll switch this on my deluge to be a MIDI track, and if I press it, we can see that we get a little light lighting up that says gate. Now, fortunately, on a lot of these modules, these controls, bus CV, bus gate, and bus control, are on a lot of these other modules. So for example, if I were to plug into CV1 from bus CV, and then I take a square wave, for example, move it into here. It's quite high pitch, so we'll just go down a couple of octaves. Now I can use MIDI to control my oscillator pitches. Now we could also take this same oscillator and we could feed it into a VCA, control the VCA with that envelope. And then we can trigger the gate of this envelope using the bus gate, which is our MIDI. Of course, we'll need to take the VCA out, and we'll whack it into a filter. And then we'll go from the filter to our mixer. So now we can play around with attack and decay. And now I'm just playing the keyboard on my deluge. And we're using this like a traditional synthesizer. So yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Now, when it comes to MIDI, we actually have a few different options available to us. At the moment, we're on MIDI channel 1. And if I were to jump out of this, which I'm hoping that my camera picks up, you should be able to at least see the deluge screen. I'm just creating a second MIDI track. This is MIDI channel 2. And you can see that it's not doing anything. You can see on the screen here that notes are triggering and it's not doing anything. And that's because we're pretty much just using MIDI channel 1 right now. If we switch this from channel to Omni, we can see that MIDI channel 2 is now affecting things. So this means that regardless of what MIDI channel is being used on your external device, it's going to affect your AE Modular system. I'm going to switch this back to how it was. Underneath that, we've got Legato. So I'll just remove that second MIDI channel I've made, switch back to the first one. There we go. So we can hear that every time a note is triggered, it's triggering the system. Let's switch this to Legato. This means that we can continue to trigger notes and they're all going to fall underneath the initial trigger of our envelope until we let go. Pretty much how Legato works on any other system. So this is really, really helpful because if we introduce a bit of attack and a longer decay, maybe we'll switch this to a higher octave. We'll filter this a little more. This is really good for simulating woodwind sounds. If we were to plug a noise oscillator into a second VCA and route it all to play along with that sound, you could get some really cool woodwind timbres out of this. You could even get fairly creative and maybe take the same envelope and use it to modulate our filter cutoff. Pretty fantastic stuff. Now, you might have noticed down the bottom here that as well as that Omni mode, we've got a little arrow pointing down to this MIDI channel section. I'll just poke this cable in here to get it out of the way. So yeah, we're on MIDI channel 1 right now, but let's say you're using a controller that has specific MIDI channels that are already being used by other things. Well, we can switch to MIDI channel 14, 15, or 16 if we want to. When you get your AE Modular system, your master module should come with 2 of these tiny little patch jacks. I'll just leave it there so that the camera can pick it up nice and clearly. Essentially, what this is a tiny little patch point that we can plug into this section. So if we just go to 14, that should be in there. I switch this MIDI channel to anything, it's not going to work, and you'll notice our gate isn't lighting up. But if we go all the way up to 14, pretty great. If we go up to 15 on here, nothing's happening. So we would take this out, move it to 15. So that just offers you a little bit more flexibility in how you want to route things. Now we've also got bus clock under here and bus start, and a lot of those things are printed on other modules as well, as you can see. So if I press play on my deluge, you can see that the clock lights up. Now it almost looks like a solid light, and my deluge is running at 120 beats per minute right now. If I were to turn this all the way down to something like 25 beats per minute, now we can see there's a pulse, but that's definitely not 25 beats per minute. And that's because MIDI operates at 24 beats per quarter note, or 24 pulses, I should say. So when dealing with something like that, now we've got MIDI coming into our master module, it's spread throughout the bus cable in our system. So we would take something like the MIDI clock divider down here, take bus clock, plug it into clock. When I press play, now we've got some more even divisions that we can toggle between so that we can get our systems sort of playing faster or slower, but always in time with our external pieces of gear. It's worth noting that when you do this, sometimes things might fall in and out of sync when you start and stop playback. So it's important to try and remember to patch things like bus start to reset. And that means that every time I start this, it resets the MIDI clock divider, or your sequencer, or whatever else you're using with your external pieces of gear. These are printed on the master module as well, so you can just patch directly from there to something else like your bus clock or your bus start. They just send out 5-volt triggers as soon as you activate something on your external gear, and it's really, really helpful. So I probably should have specified as well that you notice that some words here are separated by little white lines. So only the right-hand side of these patch points are correlating with bus clock, bus start, and bus stop. On the left-hand side, we have +5 volts, +5 volts, and then ground. So these things are useful for different use cases. For example, the EuroPi down here, sometimes you might need to calibrate it after doing an update. And the way to do that is by feeding +5 volts or a ground loop into it from those patch points. There's a couple of other weird use cases I've found for things like this. For example, this 555 oscillator, if I just plug it directly in and turn the pitch all the way down, that's as low as it seems to go, but it's not actually as low as it goes. And this is just the design of this particular third-party oscillator. If I were to, however, go frequency and put it into ground, for example, and then we turn it up, you can hear that it goes quite low indeed. So yeah, I mean, the only other thing I have to say about the master module is that it is worth going onto the Tangible Ways website and looking at the documentation for it if you plan on using this system in conjunction with a Euro rack system. To my knowledge, there is a little port on the back of the module that allows you to take power from a Euro rack system and get one of the Euro rack adapters and have these things sit in your Euro rack, which is really, really cool. I just don't have any Euro rack here, so I can't demo that for you today. Other than that, I don't think that there's anything left that I have to say about this particular module, and I hope that you enjoy the demo patches that are about to play for you. For now, hit the like if you like, and if you don't, tell me why. Please subscribe, check me out on Patreon, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.